It may be after dawn, but we're still in the shadow of Kendall Mountain as the day breaks on the morning of October 17th, 2023. Our train from the previous day, with its mid-train helper, has been split among the two tracks that run along Silverton's 12th Street. For how we got from Durango to Silverton on this special mid-train helper recreation, and a brief history of time regarding these famous locomotives, check out our first part that was previously released on this channel. Our mixed train has been split, with the 476 handling the freight portion of the consist, including Caboose 540. The 473 will now take charge of a matched set of San Juan coaches, Combine 212, and the glass roof Silver Vista on the rear. Railroad operating rules prohibit double heading on long down grades, so splitting the train from mixed consist into freight and passenger is practical to utilize the now redundant second locomotive and allow for multiple photographic opportunities. The sun has finally arisen over the broad shoulders of Kendall Mountain, and it's time to roll. First out of the gate will be the 476 with its freight section. While the track on 12th Street was not in place until the late 1950s, and would never have had any freight service by the Rio Grande, one can only squint and imagine that the 476 is instead pulling its train from being stored on the old interchange track that once existed here to connect the Rio Grande to the Silverton, Gladstone, and Northerly Railroad that once reached the Gold King Mine far up Cement Creek to the north, and the Silverton Northern Railroad reaching eastwards along the Animas River towards the Continental Divide and the ghost towns of Eureka and Animas Forks. Not far behind is 473 with the early 1950 style passenger consist. With its white classification flags flying denoting its extra train status, an unusual departure time from Silverton. Let's imagine that this is a charter passenger train scheduled for a quick overnight layover in Silverton, like the Kiwanis Color Caravan or a Rocky Mountain Railroad Club trip of yore. We jump aboard the Silver Vista, and like a phoenix from the ashes, this car hit the rails in 2006, a near-perfect recreation of the original open-air narrow-gauge dome car that plied these rails from 1947 until its untimely demise in a shop fire in Alamosa in September of 1953. Now notice I said almost like the original, as this version doesn't have window shades, has modern UV glass to keep us cool, and 2x1 seating versus the original with its tight 2x2 seating.
Well, it's supposed to be finished probably by next season.
Leaving Baker's Park, we squeeze through the gap at Cataract Falls, where the early autumn has the Rio de los Animas running low, showing the stained rocks from the acidic mine drainage, depositing heavy metals from the mines upstream over the last century. The ochre-colored rocks line the rails of the Silverton from the end of the railroad to near Elk Park. Just north of Elk Park, we're on the Colorado Trail, a 486-mile-long route that winds its way from Denver to Durango. This segment here crosses the Animas after dropping along the Grenadier Range to the east and coming off the Continental Divide via Elk Creek and climbing out of the Animas Canyon to meet Highway 550 at Molas Lake, one of the few places one can reach the railroad between Silverton and Rockwood. Of course, the Durango and Silverton today is in the business of hauling tourists and not ore and supplies, but that does not make it any less of a real railroad. And so, we once again take to the siding at Elk Park to clear for the daily train. As our trains are unscheduled extras, noted by the white flags, and the daily train 463 is governed by timetable authority, we wait until it shows, even if it's late due to an unplanned stop at Rockwood earlier in its run. As we await the impending arrival of 463, the specials crew of Nick, Joe, Nick, Kyla, Russell, Dylan, Kyle, and John all pose for posterity on the pilot of the 473 before the departure southward.
Kyla, look that way. My engine. Look at my engine.
With the daily train's markers north of our entry point into the main, we take to those rails and head southward. We find ourselves at a new run-by locale, Junior's Kitchen at milepost 488.5, 2 miles south of Elk Park. This broad open area is in the floodplain of the River of Souls as the railroad hugs the western wall of the canyon. On board with the 473 once again, we're easing to take on some water at the Needleton tank before we ease on down the 2-5 grade.
Oh no, this is it. Hi guys. Everybody's here.
One of the more popular spots as of late among the Durango and Silverton photo trains is Goblin Fire. This curve, built on a fill over the ancient path of the Animus, is marked by the remnants of a recent wildfire that opened up this view to the majestic Needle Mountains that rise nearly 6,000 feet above us, 5 miles to the northeast. We hop aboard once again, and at Tacoma, our two trains are recombined back into one. And Caboose 540 takes up its mantle, carrying the Ad Lake markers on the rear, which is where we find ourselves riding in its cupola from the high bridge along the Highline to the world-famous Horseshoe Curve.
Work car 222 to dispatcher, over. Dispatch, over. Showing southbound from Tacoma, switches line lock normal, over. Dispatch, switch to Tacoma, line lock normal. Thanks, dispatch out.
The trains have once again been split after we arrive at Rockwood, and we've leapt ahead to Hermosa, where 476 and the freight section rattle across Highway 550 and past the water tank. Smoke rolls off the hot wheels of this short section of train with its relatively high tons per operative brake as it comes off the 9-mile-long Hermosa Hill.
The smoke means the brakes are working.
Correct.
Well, DX and top sensor.
The 476 races through the glacial valley, the lengthening shadows of the day playing with the golden trees of the valley. We find the 476 at Home Ranch, the final sighting before Durango. Here, the 476 will set out the gondolas and the flat cars. Only the boxcars will continue onto the yards at the end of the line. Right behind, though, is 473 with the passenger consist, which holds the main behind during this switch move.
train this afternoon.
Back in Durango, we find the 476 rolling across 6th Street, heading to the station the wrong way. The reason? In front of the Durango Depot, the shop crews have brought out unto the daylight the third missing K-28, the 478, and placed her in front of the Durango Depot, still carrying its old train indicator boards alongside her stack and carrying the original circus font style Durango and Silverton lettering that adorned these locomotives from mid-1981 until the mid-2010s. She stands mostly as she had the day the final fire was dropped from her ash pan nearly 7 years earlier, guzzied up a bit on her smoke box for display in the museum with paint that wasn't on her in service. It clashes with the patina on the smoke box access door that was placed back upon it a day earlier after long ago giving up its original to the 473. With the 478 holding the pass, 476 rolls to a stop on its fireman's side on track 1. And in short succession, 473, with the passenger section, rolls to a stop adjacent to the long cold 478's engineer's flank on the main track. For the first time in years, if not decades, these three workhorses of the Denver and Rio Grande Western, and now the Durango and Silverton, are side by side for a photographic opportunity like this. One would probably have to go back as far as 1999 before the 476 was removed from service to find all three lined up in this fashion. While the 478 lies dormant, it was announced publicly, not even 24 hours before this photo opportunity, that she would be the next return to service, with the railroad's ridership climbing ever higher like the San Juan Mountains, and the demand for rides behind steam not wavering. The 478 would be the next locomotive restored to operation, though, at the time of this video, she would still be awaiting her turn in the roundhouse, behind the priority of getting K36, number 481, completed in its conversion from coal to oil, and the completion of 482's mandated Federal Railway Administration 1472-day inspection. 478 will soon be ready to begin its journey to return to the rails as the Durango and Silverton's 7th operable steam locomotive, and its conversion to oil to allow for year-round operation in the face of the ever-drying and changing climate in the American Southwest. But, like a monsoon storm in the desert, as soon as it seemed to have started, it was quickly over. After all, the Durango and Silverton is, of course, a real railroad, and even being in the yard, we have to clear once again for train 464 and its load of tourists returning from Silverton.
Right. Not a charity by choice, though.
476 having dropped its boxcars off, and the 473 cut away from its passenger cars. The latter returns to the pass track to pick up her laid-up sister and take her back to the roundhouse, where she'll begin her rebirth of a locomotive, the next time basking in the daylight on these rails under a full head of steam.
Say something.
Something.
Okay. Roar.
Rar.
We look like the two dumbest guys in the world to you. Is that why you choose to treat us with such disrespect? Like, oh,
Is there a problem?
You're Abe Froman,
That's right. I'm Abe Froman.
the sausage king of Chicago.
He should have taken my Leatherman. He could at least have sawed at it.
Why are we all late? Did you try to take out a tree?
The Colville Indians of upstate Washington called him Sasquatch.
Mind up.
I mean, who else did you expect? Hey, if you haven't already, make sure you click like and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you.